Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Thursday, April 24th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunewood.
From New York, I'm Andrea Jones-Rooy.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by its listeners thanks to all of you, including Larry Bailey, Michelle Sergiu, Kirk Stephenson, and our new patrons, Arn and Brian.
Yay! We got a bunch of new patrons so far this week. Let's keep it going, everybody.
Good life choices, everyone. Yeah.
Who will we thank on Friday? But Arn and Brian, welcome. We love our patrons. You make the show possible. And welcome everybody to DTNS Live. This is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better. Andrea Jones-Rooy, so glad to have you back. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It is great to be back. I could stand to understand a few things a little better, so it's always nice to come here.
Yes.
Get that fixed.
Well, that's a nice thing about the show. I feel like I walk away from it sometimes being like, I explained some things well, but I learned a lot more.
Exactly right. Yes.
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll just go ahead and get into the quick hits. But before we do, just a little note that Meta's Threads domain is moving from threads.net to threads.com. Hold on to your butts, everyone. All right. Now the quick hits.
Adobe launched updated Firefly AI models, including Image Model 4 for improved image quality and control, a new vector model for editable artwork, and a video model for text-to-video generation. A new Firefly web app centralizes these tools and includes models from OpenAI, Google, and Flux, with a mobile version on the way. All outputs include content credentials for transparency.
Motorola launched 3 new Razr models. The flagship Razr Ultra, that goes for $1,299, the Razr Plus for $999, and the Razr for $699. All have stronger titanium hinges and new finishes. The Ultra has some premium materials like real wood, better cameras, a larger display, faster charging, and a dedicated AI button. All models support Moto AI features, including note-taking and smart recaps, although only that Ultra gets the AI shortcut button. Pre-orders start May 7th and sales on May 15th.
The Information's Wayne Ma reports that while Apple continues to shift more iPhone production from China to India, Chinese authorities are said to be delaying or blocking equipment exports. One supplier allegedly used a front company to bypass restrictions, according to the report. 20% of iPhones are now made in India, but Apple is looking for a bigger number there amidst trade tensions.
TSMC unveiled its next-gen A14 chip tech, set for launch in 2028, promising 15% faster speeds, 30% better efficiency than current N2 chips. TSMC's new System on Wafer X can link 16 or more large AI chips with memory and optics, drawing thousands of watts. TSMC is also expanding its U.S. AI chip production, competing with Intel and other companies, but specifically Intel, on integration, speed, customer service, pricing, and wafer access, all key factors.
Anthropic has launched a model welfare research program investigating whether AI systems might someday merit moral consideration. It will examine potential AI consciousness, distress signals, and ethical treatment, despite no real current scientific consensus on AI sentience. Anthropic says it plans to revise its views as the field evolves.
The Apple Watch launched on this day, April 24th in 2015. Happy 10 years, Apple Watch. It's since sold 281 million units and helped redefine health features on smartwatches like heart rate monitoring, ECG, and fall detection. Obviously, plenty of other options today out there, and there are challenges like overall declining smartwatch sales and some patent disputes. But in North America, Apple still has over 50% of the market share for watches. Thursday, Volkswagen of America and Uber announced a joint plan to launch a commercial robotaxi service using autonomous electric VW ID Buzz vehicles in multiple cities over the next decade, starting in Los Angeles by late 2026. So this isn't happening tomorrow. This is something that's planned for late next year. At first, vehicles will have to have human safety drivers, aiming for full autonomy by 2027 if all goes well. VW's autonomous subsidiary, ADMT, will handle testing and deployment once it receives its initial testing permit from the California Department of Motor Vehicles. I mean, it's possible that it couldn't receive that, but assuming it will, that's the timeline here. Using mobile eye tech, which the company has been working on for some time. The partnership is in line with Uber's broader strategy of teaming up with multiple AV firms. All right, so I thought this story was interesting mostly because I live in Los Angeles and I like options like this. I'm like, all right, bring on the autonomous vehicles, get everybody off the highway, let's streamline the city. But I wanted to kind of go around the horn and see how people feel about the autonomous robotaxi thing, because depending on where you live, it either doesn't apply to you at all because you've never used one, it's not in your area, and you don't travel enough to a place where you would use one, or maybe you have other thoughts about it. Andrea, let's start with you.
Well, as you said that, I started feeling very provincial because I have never been in one, and I guess I have never thought to try one in a city that does have it. And, I live in New York City, and if there are autonomous cars, I have not been given that memo and or am living under a rock. But even when I visited LA recently, it didn't occur to me to try it out. So I feel like I'm totally open to it. I believe that actually the data that suggests that for the most part, these things are actually quite safe. One thing I'm very intrigued about is I easily get car sick. And so I wonder if a robot driving rather than a human driving would help on motion sickness. I look forward to data coming in on that.
Yeah, something potentially just smoother, instead of that lead foot that some people have, which for me too, that tends to make me a little bit more motion sick, especially if I'm sitting in the back seat.
Right.
But and Rob, you do a fair amount of travel, but you don't have this in your area of Ohio.
No, Midwest is still not big on autonomous stuff. I think a big part of it is because the cities are not necessarily close to each other, and just everybody has cars. We are really a suburb-driven place here in Columbus, and I was just thinking, the Columbus area is quite large, so it would be expensive to use these type of things to get around the entire city, because you literally could drive 30, 40 miles away and still be in Columbus. So it's interesting, but I've never seen these things. I've seen them when I've gone to Phoenix before, but in Columbus, I've never seen them outside of a tech spec, maybe at one of the big malls or something like that, where they just happen to be showing it or doing something at the mall that particular day or that particular weekend. So it'll be interesting when these things are actually pervasive enough that we would actually see them in places like the Midwest, where generally just most people just have cars and drive.
Roger, I know you and I live in the same city, but LA is large. I talk about Whimo all the time because, and I cannot stress this enough, that if you've never seen just a fleet of Whimos in your neighborhood at all times, you think I'm probably exaggerating. I am not. And Whimos now get on the freeway. Now, they didn't used to do that. They had to take surface streets. And it's, again, Los Angeles, depending on, where you're going and what time of day, taking the freeway can be either the worst idea or the best idea. And to have a car that's just getting you from point A to point B is amazing. However, if I were to leave from my area of town is serviced basically like due west till you get to the ocean, or all the way east till you get to downtown, which is not that far away from me. But so we I have a pretty big swath of places that I can take a Waymo to. I cannot go to Roger's house though. You get far north and it's just not serviceable. The company hasn't mapped out the area yet. So yeah, Roger, I don't know. What are your thoughts on more of these options?
They would be great, and I'm not against them. I just want to make sure that they don't add to the congestion because of sort of confusion with the system. Also, I think what would really sell it, at least for me, to take one is if I can get to one of the connecting, like LAX to a major airport and out to a destination, whether it's my hotel or say like I need to hit like Burbank, and it can drive all the way out to Burbank and it won't be an issue. Because they're for people who are unfamiliar with the LA area, driving can be a real nightmare, right? There's a bunch of freeways, not the world's greatest signage that I've ever seen, even in California for directions. And having some of that alleviated by an automated transit system would be great, especially if you combine that with like an Airbnb. Like you get carted from the airport straight to your Airbnb, don't have to worry about like getting lost or anything like that, and then just have it like coast while you unload everything and then hop in for something to eat.
They should hire you as a salesperson. That sounded pretty good, Roger.
Yeah,
no.
it did.
I do like the future that you envision. I do.
Yeah, I mean,
you should call up Volkswagen of America and be like, you
I
know
mean-
what? I've got some marketing ideas for you.
I mean, they're using their I think their the new electric microbus, which I don't know how big of a seller it is, but it's something they recently introduced. But you can cram a lot of stuff in there. I mean, it's a minivan, so
Exactly.
you can take a good amount of luggage and a good number of people. Heck, even if you're just doing like bar hopping and everyone's just a little under to drive, you just drop into one of these and it carts you to the next watering hole.
I mean,
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
It does come across to me as, okay, I mean, this is not like the hugest bus in the world, but this is also not a small sedan, which...
Like it's a carpooling service, right? Like everyone who's here who wants to go to LAX, like that's the kind of...
It could
the
be,
idea, right?
yeah,
Okay.
it could be. I'd be interested to see how it rolls out and what they're pushing when it comes to LA, next year. If I even still live here, who even knows? But yeah, I mean... I know for some of you out there watching us or listening, it's like, oh gosh, autonomous vehicles. I mean, it's just such a promise. It really is. It's a reality. The promise of the helicopter taxis. We're still
Waiting.
kind of in those
5
early
years
stages.
in, we're still waiting.
Yeah, it's not a real thing. But you can, I can hail a Waymo right now and go to the beach if I wanted to. I'm not going to because I'm doing the show, but
I'll say
here's my
this:
question for you,
if
Spirit.
Waymo has
Yeah.
managed San Francisco, all right, and if it can manage the aggro drivers on the 405 or the 10 or any of the freeway surface streets that that litter the LA area, I think they would have a very well developed product because they would have a lot of data to call from. Like, is a car doing this? It's going to try to catch you
literally
off. It's
doing
like-
that. Sorry, Rob, you also had a question.
Since you're the one who actually uses Waymo fairly regularly, what is the price like? I mean, what does it cost compared to getting an Uber or a Lyft?
It's pretty comparable. It is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look at some of my past receipts, but I mean, it's not like, oh, I paid double to get a Waymo. It's basically the same. In fact, the other night I was going to a dinner and, I just wasn't going to drive. So I pulled up the Waymo and I was like, next Waymo in 15 minutes, 15. And then I pulled up Uber and it was like, next Uber in 2 minutes. And I was like, just take the Uber. So it's like, it's not always just the cooler option. Sometimes it actually is not the best option, unless for whatever reason you really don't want a human in the same car as you. And
removing a
people
body
have
or
all sorts of
something.
reasons
Yeah.
for that.
So my follow-up question then is, all things being equal, in other words, the pricing and the availability and the ability to get you there in the same amount of time, would you prefer a Waymo over
Yes.
an Uber? Or yes, because
I
you don't have
would.
to talk to anyone.
And it's not because I don't like chatting with the person driving the car. In fact,
just
I've
feels
had
awkward.
all sorts of great conversations with cab drivers and Uber drivers. and Lyft drivers.
Overrated. People who talk to cabbies, you know what? I think you're a great
it's
line of humanity, but
I
not
think
everyone
we all,
wants to do that.
we get in and out of moods. It's like, do I talk to the person on the plane next to me? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So it's not so much that I'm like, I don't want to be in the car with somebody that I don't know driving me. That I'm very used to that. It's not a big deal. But I just think the Waymo is just a cool experience. It's very
There is
it's
no
very seamless.
expectation of human interaction.
No, even though the humans for sure are watching you because there are lots of cameras in the
Yeah,
car.
but you don't need to talk to them. You don't need to
No.
ask them to roll up the
well,
window
and
or
it just feels
not
like a
smoke
very
while they're
you know,
driving.
You sit in there and it's like, "Hello, Sarah," and I'm
feels like the future.
"Woo." Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's very.
Well, listen,
interesting.
Humans are out of sight, out of mind. So you're just not thinking about them, even though they're watching you as intently as, probably even more so than what the Uber drivers.
Yeah, because they
watching
want to
the
know what the
road.
heck you're doing.
They're watching you. So
I mean, the problem
Yeah.
with interacting with humans, Sarah, what you're describing is like when I go to the grocery store. We talked about this on this show. I vastly prefer the automatic checkout that you do yourself, the self checkout, as opposed to a person, because I'm always like, the person's going to do it wrong because I'm a jerk. But other times they do it right, or I have a great conversation. And so the problem with humans is you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you're going to get in a car and have an amazing conversation.
That's a really good way to put it. We're all just unpredictable.
Yeah. Whereas
you
a
could
robot,
have like a good driver or a really bad driver.
Right.
You don't know.
Right. And the sad thing is that the more we automate these things, the less, random, fun, interesting conversations you get to have, but the fewer creepy experiences.
I will say in my lifetime that it's been split 50-50 between amazing conversations and also like, I need to get out of here as quickly as possible, take me to my destination, because your trivia quiz in the cab, it doesn't come off as like whimsical or fun. It comes off as sort of threatening.
A threatening trivia quiz. No, I don't want that either.
If you ever, you can ask. There was a time where Screensavers was in Austin, and one of my fellow producers, I took a cab back to the hotel, and she could tell you like it was a very surreal experience, almost life-threatening.
Wow, I'm pretty sure I was on that trip as well. I was not in the cab with you, though. I think that would have been something I would remember.
Be thankful.
I will be thankful. We'll also hopefully be thankful, Rob, for Microsoft's recently released 2025 Work Trend Index annual report, coming up with some new classifications for companies.
So yeah, this new 2025 report was released, and it just tell you what it is. It's a survey by Microsoft that surveys 31,000 people across 31 countries, and they look at a bunch of different factors. And literally, they actually use the word trillions, in as far as data points that they're looking at. But what essentially they've come up with is a new term. They're calling a new type of company a frontier firm, and they said that this is the year that the frontier firm is born, and is marking a pivotal shift where companies move beyond simply experimenting with AI to rebuilding their operations around what the report refers to as intelligence on tap. So a frontier firm is specifically identified by 5 distinguishing traits, and I'll just kind of run through them here. So organization-wide AI deployment, advanced AI maturity, which is things like covering pace and mindset, investment, adoption, and ROI, current use of agents, projected future use of agents, and the belief that agents are crucial for achieving ROI on AI. So essentially what Microsoft is coming up with, or should say this survey is coming up with, is that companies for the most part are all going to become these type of frontier firms in a relatively short future. They're thinking within the next 2 to 5 years that everyone will be trending this way. And there's some really good key points here. So one of the things that this survey exhibited was that leaders are already rethinking their strategies and operations, with 82% recognizing that this is the pivotal year. They think that they need to start doing this year, 2025. So we're not even a full 4 months into the year yet, but they're already thinking that this year, this is when this is going to really start taking off. 24% of companies are already implementing AI organization-wide, and only 12% of companies, which kind of struck me as odd, only 12% of companies only have AI in pilot mode. So that means that the other 88% are doing AI. I mean, they're using it full blown. That I knew that it was a lot of companies. I didn't know that it was 88% of companies were already using this. Within the next 12 to 18 months, 81% of leaders anticipate moderate to extensive integration of agents in their AI strategies. And this highlights that, the whole thing here, that this is going to be very transformative for these AI organizations. And then the last one here is that the emergence of frontier firms signals this shift. And within the next 2 to 5 years, as we said earlier, is that this is expected that every organization is going to be running this way. So long story short, this survey is saying that companies, if they are not already, they will be in a very, very short time be using AI extensively. And this is a pretty detailed report. But some of the things that were coming here, like we threw out that term of intelligence, and intelligence on demand, intelligence on tap is how they actually provide it. And when you think about intelligence, this is one of the areas that companies, until very recently, this is where they spent most of their capital. Intelligence is what you get people to do, where they've got to think and they've got to spend time on the projects that they're working on. And it's very intensive. It's very capital, resource hungry, and it costs a lot of money to do it. But with AI, this type of intelligence, you can almost but when we need it, we can just plug in and just get it right now. You don't have to put people in place for this and have them sitting there waiting for you to go out and figure out what's going on. You literally can say, we need to know something right now. Let's throw AI at it, right now. So it's almost like an on-demand type of thing. And that change is very different. So one of the things that the survey is pointing out is that you're going to have people's jobs are ultimately going to change to where they're looking at individual contributors will now be managers of AI, where you are using agents or you're using, other forms of AI to go out.
You basically have a team.
Yeah, so you'll have a team, but the team isn't necessarily just people. It is people and the AI that they actually are the proprietors of. So all the people will be using AI. You will build a team of not just a person, but a team of a person and the AI that they specialize in using in an organization.
So like, would you apply for a job and say, I used to say I'm a specialist in Python and editing and this and that, and now I would say I'm an expert in this sort of AI agent, basically? Like, you hire me, you're also going to hire my 3 AI buddies? Is that
or I'm just so well versed in AI agents in general. Here's my experience that I can get, onboarded quickly.
It's this to me sounds awesome. It also sounds fundamentally very optimistic. And I'm curious to know in 2 to 3 years' time, because there's always a shift in the way companies approach new technologies. When people met the IT revolution, right? We're going to have everything on a network. We're going to give everyone computers. It's going to exponentially expand the amount of productivity per person, in a company-wide organization, because now they don't have to deal with all the minutia of, I got to mail this out, I got to send it here. I can do it all from my computer. I send it electronically. There's no mail room that needs to pick it up and then drop it off. And it scaled up quite nicely, but there's a plateau that you eventually reach where you've taken all you can gain out of this. And one of the things that made me think about it, Sarah, was when you said, like, we can now just have people very skilled at agentic AI interfacing. But what I think you need is people who understand what the output should be. And so when you do get an output from an AI agent or an AI generative AI system, you say, hey, yeah, this totally makes sense, or no, this obviously doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. You're not going to build an ice structure in the middle of the desert in the middle of summer, because it's not going to stand up. It's going to melt. There's all these things that you cognitively know, but you need to have that base information. You have to understand that field in order to say whether or not the output is effective or there's enough efficacy there to we should go forward with this, or no, this is a terrible idea. You're not going to build a mud structure in the middle of a monsoon during the rainy season, because it's all going to wash downhill.
Yeah. I mean, Roger, what you're describing kind of makes me think of, like, currently, I teach programming to a lot of students, and it's like, well, with Google Copilot, you don't need to learn to program. And it's like, you don't need to learn in the same way, but you still need to know, is this program doing what I think it's doing? And is it working? And is it doing it in a way that makes no sense? And it's kind of reminding me of, for Google Translate, as good as it is, you can't evaluate, I translated my essay into French. Is it right? Well, someone somewhere who speaks French has to look at it before I can publish it, because who knows?
And it's actually not. I've tried to be like, no, I'm like pretty fluent. People are like, that's not how any
and it
actual
still saves
native speaker
labor.
Would say it.
I'm not hiring a full-on translator to go word by word through my essay. I run it through Google Translate, and then I hire a French person for a half hour to say, hey, does this make sense? Right? So
yeah,
expertise is still there somewhere.
There's also such a big difference between, a huge business and a small business, right? Or a medium-sized business, of course, just a lot of different moving parts. But thinking of, I have a lot of really small businesses around me, just mom and pop shops, selling you paella or helping you mail a letter or whatever. And it's like, all right, a lot of these places, I'm positive, are not experimenting with AI at all, because they do a couple things really well. It's just that's the deal. It's not supposed to scale. It's the one shop. But when it comes to customer service, for example, there's a bakery down the street from me. Great bakery. They don't deliver because it's like they don't, it's like a family-owned business. They're like, we don't have any more sons, to drive the truck. It's like you come in, you get the bread. That's how you do it. But if there was some way that some of the just kind of back office stuff could be lifted off of somebody's back, Well, maybe you do get a truck at that point. Maybe
Well,
you
Sarah,
get an autonomous truck.
I was
at
going to
that
say,
point.
that's where I thought you were going is
Yeah.
autonomous vehicles. You know, when I was in LA a couple weeks ago, and there was one of those Amazon autonomous kind of coolers driving around trying to deliver something. It seemed extremely lost in a parking garage, but if you could get it right, then you have the humans making the bread and the robot doing the delivery.
Yeah,
But
I
also,
think
Sarah, it sounds like you live in a utopia where it's like automated cars and all of this in the future, and somehow mom and pop stores are still thriving. Like, how did you figure this out? Like, you've done it.
LA's got it all. I also have a guy who does donuts outside my front door,
Wow.
you know, at all hours. So, you know, utopia is a stretch. But no, it's listen, there are a lot of places in the world where it's you just have companies of various sizes. And I think the sort of small company who's like, well, this isn't for us, right? We've got the whole thing dialed. That's
here's
the
where I
most
would argue with
interesting
that,
part.
Sarah. Here's where I would argue with that, because I think that a lot of times when we think about AI, we think that it's going to come in and replace some big system. But really, when you are that small company, when you're that, you know, definitely not even medium size, but when you're that small company, you're the one who's doing a bunch of different things. And what you might do is start using AI to just make the job that you're already doing a little easier,
deal
instead
with
of
the
me having to
paperwork
go and do all this stuff. Oh, I can use this agent that's going to go do these things for me. So even without it being a formal thing to where a company saying we're bringing AI in, you may have employees at these smaller companies that are using it. And where I believe that the frontier firms are going to be created is when the company says, oh, that's really productive. Let's look into that. How can we reproduce that? So if you needed to once or twice a year go hire a bunch of temps to come in and do a specific job function, but now you've got AI that can do it, you literally are, you know, able to shift that resource from going and hiring people to now we're just going to have maybe one person that just knows how to use this AI bot really well that can do that work for us. So I think that it's, you know, even with small companies, you're just going to see the way they operate because they already are using these things. I mean, Grammarly is an AI agent.
Yeah.
You know, Google Docs. If you have Google Docs, you're using AI in it a lot at the time.
Constantly
when
wants
you're
to
creating
summarize
stuff.
my document. Stop it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, Rob, when you talk about this, two things just keep coming to mind. And one is universal basic income or something, because if I'm not hiring all these interns to edit my podcast because AI can do it, then where are these people going to go and how are they going to get careers? So that's obviously, you know, a thing that people are thinking about. But the other thing, as you're describing this, is that it all feels sort of lonely in at least the Microsoft vision of the future, where managers are managing a whole bunch of AI agents. Like, isn't the fun of work? Well, you're hopefully doing something that's meaningful, and obviously work isn't always fun, but isn't it also like fun to like gossip with your colleagues on Slack and all that? Like, doesn't that go away if we're all just
The
sitting
AI
here
agents
managing?
are going to do that, Andrea.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
They're just not going to do it with us.
Oh, okay. It's like which AI agent is dating which AI agent secretly? Like, what's the HR clause on that?
We laugh now.
We
But
do
I
laugh.
don't
Really do.
know. I don't know. We might be headed for something there. Well, if you anything that we talk about on the show strikes a nerve, strikes a chord with you, and you want to let us know what you want us to talk about on a future show, a great way to do that is in our subreddit. Submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show. Earlier in the week, we discussed a story about South Korean comics artist Lee Hyung-se's work in training Stable Diffusion on his work, with the hope that after he passes, his artistic style will live on uniquely to him. But how realistic is that to expect an LLM to replicate our work style in a similar way? Andrea, I know you have thoughts here.
I do have thoughts here. And with another edition of Andrea Points Out the Limitations of AI, I think is what we might subtitle this. But there's a paper that was published about earlier this month. It's a working paper from two NYU business school professors, Vasant Dar and Joao Sadoc. And it's called D-Bot, Artificial Intelligence for Systematic Long-Term Investing. And the idea of this paper is, could we build a bot? Could we create AI using LLMs and train it to replicate the decision-making and the reasoning of a star investor? And so if you're not in the investing world, which I am not, the person, Aswath Damodaran, is considered a highly respected investor. He specializes in valuation. So saying, how much is this company going to be worth in 6 months? And that kind of medium to long-term prediction and valuation is really, really tricky for anyone. And it's especially tricky for automation. So if you think of like high frequency trading and investing short term, AI is already there and we're all over with machine learning and predictives, but these longer term things get harder, just like predicting the weather gets harder 3-4 months out, right? But Aswath Damodaran has been for decades considered a really impressive and thoughtful investor. And he writes a blog called Musings on Markets, and it's still on Blogspot. That's how long he's been doing this. And he writes almost every day. And what that means is that you can, so the researchers hypothesized at least, is what if we fed all these blog posts plus articles plus books? And he's a very prolific writer. So kind of like the artist you described, I think in order to start to say, could I replicate someone's decision making? Start with someone who has a huge body of work. So what if I train an LLM specifically to think like Aswath Damodaran? And so they come up with a bot named D-Bot for Damodaran bot. And then they go back and they compare how in the past the bot would have valued particular companies, and they're able to compare it. You're able to backtest AI in this way, compare it to the decisions and the valuations that Aswath actually made. And the question is, does that work? Are we already in a kind of like simulating our own intelligence? Could I create, I'm even seeing ads, create an AI agent that replicates your own decision making. And the answer is kind of. So far, the results are that the bot sounds like Aswath Damodaran. So it's his writing style, his voice, his cadence, all of that. Like, it's pretty convincing. They even had, because Aswath is one of their colleagues, they had him read it, say, does this sound like you? And that seems like such an eerie thing to go through. It's very Black Mirror to me. And so it sounded a lot like him. But unfortunately, while the kind of the math was correct on the inside of the analysis. So for example, they said, tell us what the valuation of a Chinese electric vehicle company is likely to be. And it was accurate within the domain within it was operating, in the sense that it said, well, EVs are in high demand, and this is the production cost, and this is how many people, and these are the resources, and these are the likely sales, and all of that. And that was like good and correct. But Aswath looked at it and said, okay, but they're not taking into account the role of the Chinese government. They're not taking into account the demand for EVs in other parts of the country. Like
there's
AI
a context that's missing.
Exactly. Yeah. There's like a broader picture that the AI, he describes it as Aswath's strength, having done this analysis, is really in the framing of issues and saying, if we're thinking about what is the value of a Chinese EV going to be, here are the 5 big picture things to think about, not just can we do the math on the issue itself. And so the AI is still kind of like a really good Excel spreadsheet, but the human has to say, hey, this stuff has to go in the spreadsheet. And so I thought it was a really interesting case, both to say, we can replicate decision-making in some ways. And I thought in general, it went a lot further than I expected something like a bot based on a human to go. But there is some like critical thinking or metacognition that's going on that we're not there yet. Doesn't mean we can't get there. But I thought it was super interesting. And I thought it was fun that Aswath got to read it himself. And I'm sure I would be annoyed by my own AI bot. Like, well,
and isn't that funny where if somebody, let's say somebody can, I don't know, is good in mimicry, right? Like they can do someone's voice well, or they can kind of talk the way that you were going to talk anyway. Like, I mean, I'm thinking of like Saturday Night Live.
Like an impressionist.
Skit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, people can be really good at that. And I mean, nobody's ever done that for me, but if they were to, I'm sure I'd be like, pretty good, but not totally right.
Right.
Well,
because you're not me.
Well, I think one of the things is like oftentimes when people talk of a protege, someone I'm training behind me to fulfill my role when I leave it, whether it's being a CEO, the head of an accounting firm or whatever, they're picking up not on just the day-to-day details, the minutia of calculations of the paperwork, but the broader worldview of that individual, what they think. Why should you always be looking at this aspect of finance or investment, right? Like when you look at investment, do you see like, well, there's a demand and we have a product that we can sell, but you also have to take into consideration, like, is this, culturally something they would want fashioned in this way? Like oftentimes one of the big tripping points for a lot of companies that try to go international after years or decades of being just domestically producing products is you have to take cultural considerations into account, which is why they hire people to help with that, because you need to be able to translate that and you need to be able to adapt it, right? If you go to McDonald's, any other part of the world, their menus has the same stuff, but they also have additional things, right? In India, they have vegetarian patty options that aren't available in the US. You go to Hawaii, they have a taro pie, which is amazing, but they only sell on the island, right? So there are all these very uniquely cultural concepts that I don't think it's that they're hard to define. I think you just need to include them, but it also expands the data set that you need to include, and that just might be more unwieldy at this point in time for systems to kind of make it useful.
Well, and it's
So
not
I wonder if you can actually can you pull enough training data from one person to make a model of that person? I don't know that we are there yet, because if you think about this, even if we say that Oswald is a prolific writer, what he has written is basically an error. It is a minuscule amount of what he thinks.
Yes, exactly.
So
Such a good point.
It's he thinks so much more that you never actually see written. This is what he thinks about these things. That is orders of magnitude more than you could ever train off of one person. So I wonder if in the foreseeable future, if we will ever be able to do this off of one person. You could absolutely make a bot that would mimic someone, but to actually go through the decision making, I don't know that you can do that, because the beauty of in the way that LLMs work is they get all the data that everyone has written, that all these people have put into place, and they're able to make decisions based off of all of the data as compared to the data of just one person.
Well,
so I just wonder if it's even possible.
Well, even
even if a model was just based on one person, right? And this person is prolific. Very good point, Rob. It's like, well, yeah, but you're writing what you feel like writing that day.
Right. And what
you're
you think
thinking all these other things
Well,
that are uniquely you, but you're not actually sharing with the world. It's like, I don't know, would you like mic somebody 24/7? Even then.
Right.
How many
No,
times
you
do
don't
we
have to
think
truly
something
show
and
someone,
say
really.
it's something else?
Well, that's the point. Like one of the worst judges of character of a person is that person, right?
Yes.
We tend to overinflate our perceived beneficial qualities and downplay all our negatives. And so, maybe it's a vanity thing, but we are very terrible judges, which is why people always ask their parents, their siblings, their spouses, their close coworkers, like, when they used to do that game show, what was it? This Is Your Life or whatever. They would ask everyone except you, so they could get a good standoff,
a sense of their own life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I'm a terrible judge of the type of person I am. I'm probably a jerk to most people, but I don't realize it.
I mean, when you hit on something huge, which is, we are the worst judges of our own decision making, of our own understanding of what I did yesterday. You go to the doctor, how often do you exercise? I'm like, 4 times a week. And it's like, if I actually sat, I was like, probably 0 is probably the amount, right? But it's not because I'm lying. It's because we're just very bad judges, not just of our decisions and our reasoning and our thinking,
we're trying to be
everyday stuff.
optimistic too.
Right. And we do tend to think about those things. But Rob, you're right. I mean, what we write down is also not just a random sample of our thoughts. It's a very specific, selected for sample of, I think these are my smartest thoughts or my most important thoughts, or this is why I thought that investing in EVs was a good idea, when in fact, actually, there was kind of this gut feeling that even I am not noticing, and I'm giving myself credit for my analytics, when in fact, not that he's doing any of those things, but I do think that it's such a small subset. Though, even if we're training on all things written ever, it is more volume, it's more data, but everything on the internet is just a small subset of what I've tried. Like, what I'm sharing on the internet, again, is not a random sample of who I am. It's just the teeny tiny things that I decided to tell people about. So we're training bots on our boasting, right? Or whatever it is we use social media and blogs and articles for.
We're training bots on our sometimes not that great ability to be like, this is the best version of me.
Right. The version, a very curated version is
Yeah.
which is why I partly think why getting a bot of myself would be such a nightmare. And be like, that's how I come across, because we're not conveying ourselves in a true way on the internet. We're all very curated. I
mean, gosh, there are so many times where, it's happening less and less often, but I mostly use ChatGPT to, feed it something here or there. And occasionally it'll get something weird, it'll get something wrong where I'm like, that's wrong. And it's like, you're right, it is wrong. It never goes like, no, it's right and you're wrong. You know, it's all very kind of like, okay, I'm just trying to get human input. All this is helping the model, kind of thing. But I mean, imagine. I don't know, somebody just in our human brain and all the things that you think about during the day.
Yeah.
And not everything is like super crazy, but there are lots of things where you're like, no, that's just for me. That's not for the world. It's not for my best friend. It's not for my mother. Like, no, it's just our human brain. But that is what also helps us do share things with the world. That's us.
Right.
So it's like what kind of model is that is so human-like? It's like it can't be done unless it's a very kind of specific human.
Right.
Because you just don't have like a carbon copy human.
Right. And the other question is, do you want one? I mean, in my mind, it seems very exciting if we could replicate Einstein's brain and have his brilliance and weigh in on current times. But there's also a lot of beauty and a lot of research around the importance of cognitive diversity and seeing problems in different ways. And, if I wanted to solve a problem or make a prediction, would I want to ask 5 Aswatamodorans, or would I want to ask him and 4 other people who are also pretty good at it? And so the value of these twins becomes a question in its own.
And those are all cultural conceits, right? We are making value judgments on data that we consider to be above and beyond everyone else's data. And so, and this is where bias, I mean, we've talked about this, where bias and a bunch of other stuff creeps in. And as long as we're cognizant of that, we should understand at the end of the day, I am who I am.
What a beautiful sentiment, Roger. That's the other fun about talking about AI is we always almost end up talking about like, what does it mean to be a human?
Yeah.
And you're
Aren't we all just beautiful and complicated?
Like, we got to set our egos aside and be one with the universe. And you're like, yeah. And I'm going to make a bot. Like, that's what I'm going to do.
Right. Yeah. Because, my bread mist isn't going to build itself.
That's right.
All right. So we've got new details about product labeling rules for being tech sold in the European Union. They've been released. So, Roger, tell us more about the details there.
So the labels will be required for any smartphone or tablet sold in the EU starting June 20th of this year. They display the energy efficiency, the number of charging cycles the battery can handle, durability, repairability, and if applicable, the IP rating, so dust and moisture protection. So if you drop it in a pond or you get in a dusty area, does it get into the hardware? The ratings are graded on a scale from A to G. With G being the worst, of course. The trade bloc is also introducing a minimum eco-design requirement standard. So phones and tablets must have a minimum level of protection against water, dust, drops, scratches, plus a minimum charge cycle for the batteries, along with a supply of critical spare parts within 5 to 10 working days of that product being available for sale. Plus the OS updates must be available within 6 months of the source code becoming available to everyone. My question, though, is does this matter to anyone if you are going to buy? If these rules were applied across the board, across countries, would this at all sway your opinion on a new phone or a tablet? Or is it, hey, I just want a new iPhone because I've always had an iPhone, or my friends are using this, so I need to be on this?
I mean, there's definitely I want to have the thing that other people have that I think is the cool thing, and we all do this. I definitely buy products because I'm like, it's just, I don't know, everyone else has that.
Right.
Now, did I do like a long, like 4-month study on different like earbuds before I got the Apple AirPods? No, I did not. I'm just like, they're fine. They're great. I paid what I paid and that's the end of it. But I think some of the stuff, if you get specifically into, okay, I'm going to use these earbuds in a warehouse where there's a lot of moisture in the air, and they're known to be really bad with moisture. I mean, that might inform my decision making.
I mean, it's one of those that different people also probably care more. Sarah, I'm the same as you, where it's like for this particular type of product, if it's a phone or earbud, whatever, as long as it works well enough and enough people seem to be fine with it, it's also fine for me. But there are certainly people who are much more interested. My boyfriend builds computers and he's always tracking all these strange metrics that I don't know anything about. But Roger, to your point, I feel like this is when you were talking about McDonald's before, like it's like when fast food restaurants started listing calories on the menu. I I mean, if that's useful for some people, then great, leave it there. I actively avoid that information because I'm already made the choice to eat at this place. And I'm going to get what I'm going to get. And just those numbers bother me.
100%.
I mean,
yeah.
like,
I'm like,
the other
you're
one
just going to
is-
make me feel bad about the burger I was going to get anyway.
This is the other thing, like EPA mileage on a brand new car. It's on the window sticker. It tells you what it gets city and highway. What are the most popular cars in the U.S.? SUVs and trucks, the ones that get the worst mileage of any automobile. So it's great that that's there, but I also know that that's there to kind of encourage manufacturers to be a little more forward thinking when they design these products. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's weird because I believe these can be a positive thing, but when it comes to actual day to day, like I don't look at any of that stuff. When I bought my fridge, I based it on price, would it fit, and then like the expected lifespan, like how long can I expect to have this refrigerator working without me having to buy a new one?
Well, but that's durability, right? So there's some of that. I think that this whole initiative is trying to deal with.
I think if we're generous, if we're being very generous, let's say that 7.5 to 10% of people actually think about this stuff, because there are folks that if you work in a mine, I want to make sure that my headphones, if they get thumped by something, they don't just break or the dust or whatever. 7.5 to 10%. I think that's being very generous. The other 90%, they simply don't care. It's like whatever the iPhone has, that's what I want. Whatever the hottest Samsung phone has, that's what I want. And I'm not saying that we're all peons and we just buy based off of that, but we are all peons and we just buy based off of that. I don't know that someone's going to say, well, you know what? I really was going to get that iPhone 19,011, but because it doesn't have this IP rating, I'm going to go get something completely different. That may, as I said, a very, very small percentage of people it might affect, but for the masses, absolutely not. So I don't want to say that this is much to do about nothing, because it probably will over time maybe change some behavior, but the behavior won't be on the people buying stuff. It'll be on the manufacturers making stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, as you're describing this, I'm sort of thinking about like, I'm locked into the Apple ecosystem. And so I'll buy the latest laptop if I need it. I'm not going to overthink it or whatever. But I also go wild about very inconsequential decisions. Like the other day or a couple months ago, I was buying a vacuum cleaner and I got lost in the world of like, well, this is the weight of it. And this is the power of the suction. And this is this and this. And I just like, I don't even know what these words mean. And I'm like, well, that's 70 volts and this is 60. Like that doesn't seem right. I'm dividing it by the cost difference. I'm like, why am I thinking about this? And so I don't know what the class of products is, but there are products that I weirdly will obsess over. Anything for my dogs, I'll like trace the ingredients. Like I'll get really nuts. But then the bigger purchase, like a laptop, I'm like, yeah, this one's fine. So I don't even know where the line is, where I obsess or don't.
I think
most
the
people don't want
ecosystem,
a Smucker's aisle of jelly when they're buying a phone. They want, I want grape jelly, I want strawberry jam, and I want peanut butter. Those are the three options. I'll pick one of those three. I do not need 168 different flavors of iPhone, because the iPhone is what I'm going to get. Why are you showing me all this other stuff that is, like I said, I don't want to say that it's inconsequential, but it's inconsequential to the person buying it. It's consequential to the company making it.
I mean, now what you're describing makes me think of all those in the run up to elections where we say, who are you going to vote for? And everyone is locked in for the most part. We're always stressed about undecided voters. But like I have in my mind ahead of any election who I'm going to vote for. And then if you do those online tests that are like, if you erase the candidate names and actually do the description and like which policy is closer to yours and this and that and the other thing, and a surprising candidate comes up, I still will say, no, but I'm going to vote for this other person. Like it's kind of like the brand loyalty or the you're just sold on. It's like, I'm in the Apple world and I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Like, that's it. That doesn't matter. No amount of math is going to make me change my mind on those
brand loyalty, very real. Ecosystem, very real. Both of those things, very much for me, will keep me just being like, it'll just be easier.
Yeah.
It's just going to be easier. Maybe it's cheaper, maybe more expensive, but mostly just, it's just going to be easier, to have something like this in my life. For example, going back to the car thing and gas mileage, it's like, I drive an SUV, does not get the best gas mileage in the world, but also not the worst. And that was something that I thought about, and I could have gone with I don't know, something that got way better gas mileage. And there may be a point in, I don't know, my car journey where I'm like, this guy's got to go, and I have to get something with much better gas mileage. And that doesn't really affect, I mean, that affects my pocketbook for sure, but it doesn't really affect anything else technologically. So I think the how does this tech work with the other stuff that I have is a really big part of that.
Well, and this goes back to your earlier, the news that we were talking about earlier, which is, Motorola has these new flip phones. Watching that, I was like, God, I would love to have a flip phone again. That would be amazing. And I literally, as you were talking about it, I was like, oh, but what a pain it would be to all of a sudden have a non-Apple product with my other Apple. Like, forget it, it's non-starter. It could be the coolest flip phone ever.
Learn it all over again.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But there is a kind of like temptation to give data and put data about every product. And I appreciate the transparency. And I hope, Rob, what you said, that we get more, maybe a behavior change to make more effective or efficient or whatever products. But I'm generally skeptical of just throwing data at customers' faces for the sake of seeming like you're helping them when really you're just kind of muddying the water, I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's something along the lines of like, is this movie rated G, PG, PG-13, or R, or
I
something
don't even
else?
look at those anymore.
Well, and a lot of people are sort of like, whatever, we'll figure it out for ourselves. But it might somehow, even subconsciously, kind of be like, oh, okay, this is good to know.
Well, the flip of those is on TV shows where they say, content warning, violence, sexual activity, swearing, like ahead of it. And then sometimes that ruins the episode because you're like watching a show that's not violent. And then it says episode 6, violence. You're like, oh my God, like I didn't want to see that.
Or you're waiting for the scene, and then afterwards you're like, that wasn't that bad. I wouldn't even rated it, but okay. Well, we know that many of you rate us every week, and we appreciate that because we want to know how you feel about the show. And one of the ways that you tell us is through our mailbag. So let's check it out now.
Brian had thoughts on our Google forced to sell off Chrome discussion yesterday, and he writes, in the hypothetical case where Google is made to spin off Chrome browser, they may not be forbidden from building a new browser, but they might be restricted from integrating their services so tightly into it. In fact, decoupling Google services from Chrome might be part of the ruling we soon see. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think for a minute they're going to make them sell it, but they may make them take some stuff out of it.
Yeah, I mean, Tom was very adamant yesterday, like there's no way that's going to happen. But for the sake of argument, we kind of went through, but if it did, what does Google do at that point?
I don't know. I don't know if they would even do that. They wouldn't. I think they would go what they did with Internet Explorers. Like you got to have a drop-down menu of options for all the things that you're offering. Built-in password manager. Well, you got to press a button and select that one because then they'll default to nothing. You know what I mean? Like the customer or the user needs to make one step to ensure that it is their setting. I don't know. It's
and I
so
guarantee if they're made to do that every single time you upgrade, just like when you update Windows, you're going to be asked, would you like to switch back to to Chrome's default browser settings? I guarantee you it's just going to be something to annoy people. It's like, I use this because this is what I want to use, even though you gave me no choice to use anything else. In my mind, I believe that I made the decision.
Yeah, companies love to do that, don't they? Or they say like, "Oh, you're leaving? Maybe we'll give you, I don't know, free service for 3 months."
Credit card companies
and then 3 months from now, you forget that you did that, and then you just start getting charged.
There's inertia, and they also know if they make you call them to cancel a credit card, you're never going to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, or it's going to be a long wait time on hold. We also got an email from Raven, who wrote in, about 10 years ago, this is our conversation we had yesterday about YouTube being 20 years old and how it's changed so much. Raven says, about 10 years ago, I copied all of my home videos from my Sony 8mm camcorder into digital. I wanted to have them all available online, so I decided to use YouTube to upload them. Made all the videos private, so only I can see them in my account. I've been happy with this arrangement ever since. Whenever I want to watch an old home video, I open my YouTube account, go to my videos, there they are. Seemed like a great place to have free cloud storage for my videos at the time. Just thought that this was one potential use for the platform. I don't know if anyone else has considered using it this way.
I
such
use
a good
it
idea.
that way.
Really?
I keep a copy on my local server, but I do it that way. So if anyone wants to see it, I just shoot them a link because it's a non-public link. It's an unlisted link, so they can see it. If whatever, like, oh, hey, it's your kid back when she was 2, or anything like that. But it's just a very convenient and nefariously convenient way to share videos without.
Why is it
having to pay
nefariously convenient?
Because you're not paying anything, they're making money off you, and it all seems like it's working, but is it?
They're
Like,
using your content to train their models.
There's a plot twist in there. This is what happens in the movie, right? Everything in the first half of the movie seems to be going well, and then plot twist, and then that's where you have the.
I mean, not that I think YouTube is gonna screw over anybody who's using private video storage in the way that Raven is explaining, but remember Flickr, everybody.
They still have my photos up there.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Oh, you better get it before we close it. It's like,
I mean, it's truly, there are things on Flickr, things being photos, all photos. I don't know if Flickr ever started to handle videos, but I never put any videos on Flickr. But I mean, thousands and thousands of photos that I'm pretty sure don't exist anywhere else. Yeah, they were like digitally on a computer. That computer's gone, or maybe I broke up with somebody and they've got the photos, and I'm not going to ask them for that anymore. And it's.
I spend a weekend.
It's always good to have that local copy.
I spent a weekend downloading because they gave you an option. It took forever to download those different albums, and I have them all unsorted on my hard drive with a big in a folder that says you need to sort these photos.
Yeah,
and I haven't done it in 6 years.
I have so many folders titled "Deal with this," and I just haven't touched it.
Deal with this one. Deal with this two.
Needs to be clean.
You know, Google
3.
Photos is the same way. There's no easy way to just download the entire roll of, and I still keep uploading things to it like a jerk.
I've got so much.
But the YouTube, I mean, it's a good idea, and I'm thinking about, if you have videos that you like don't mind if a random link gets sent around or Google is using it to train its AI or whatever, like it is a good backup for videos that I, don't want all my hard drives to fail and or have out of cloud space. Like I'll put some stuff on YouTube.
It really is. My father, he's retired now, but he was a wedding photographer, and he never really did videography. But there would always be the time, and this is probably like 10, 12 years ago, where folks would say, can you just video this one thing for me? And he would do it. And, it wasn't something he was charging for, but, this is like 10, 12, 15 years ago. These videos took up enormous amounts of space. So he was like, son, where can I put this? I don't want to pay for it because I'm not charging anybody for it. Where can I put it? I'll just throw it up on YouTube.
Smart.
Because it's unlimited. So he has a YouTube account that probably has over 1,000 videos that he has taken at weddings when he was doing wedding photography that are just there. They're just there in case anyone ever asks him and say, hey, do you still have that video? Can you get back to it?
You have a link. Yeah.
He has a link.
I mean, does this conversation mean that Google is going to get wise to this and start creating limits like Google Drive? Like, have we just ruined it?
No.
What about it?
I mean, I the only way I can imagine YouTube being like, yeah, you're just using this for storage is if like you only had too many private videos.
Yeah.
The thing is, they do not want to discourage people uploading stuff because that's their bread and butter.
Yeah.
And even if 50, 60% of the people aren't watching the videos, it doesn't matter. As long as you get the 40% that pay.
Yeah.
So, folks, remember, you too can send us your comments. You can do so by sending it over to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Do it early and often. Andrea Jones-Rooy, visit us early and often because we love having you on the show. Let folks know where they can keep up with your work when you're not with us.
Yeah, it's always lovely to come back here. Thanks for having me. And I have a podcast called Behind the Data that's part of the Daily Tech News Show ecosystem. Thanks very much to you all. And you can go to dailytechnewsshow.com. You should go to dailytechnewsshow.com, but you can also go to behindthedatashow.com.
Excellent.
And Roger is our producer, in fact. So, yeah.
So, folks, during the show, you've been submitting your show titles over at dtns.showbot.tv, and we've got, I think, about 35, 36 submissions over there. So we're just going to go through a few of them. I'm going to start right at the top of the list here. Robotaxis Will Be a Buzz by JPEG84.
Nice.
I like this one by G. James B. Chat rouletting drivers.
Chat roulette.
Chat roulette.
Gosh, I haven't thought about that in a while. Fun.
Larry in Atlanta submits AI can't make the donuts.
Not yet, Larry.
No.
Not yet.
Maybe the little mini ones, but not the good ones.
I like AI agents meeting at the water cooler myself. Because they're all going to be gossiping and
That is a
catching
good
up
one.
on those human reality shows they're watching.
I have a mental picture of that. Just like these two iRobot looking things just showing up at the water cooler.
But then if they drink the water, they die because they can't drink water. So it'd have to be like
Incompatible program.
So let's see here. Clinton Woodward submits boasting bots. Saray TW has a couple. Your mileage may vary. And no delivery. We're fresh out of Suns.
I like that one.
That's a good one.
At first, I was like, "What?" Oh,
such a good line.
Because the family. Yeah, I got
we're
it. The
fresh
bread
out of
shop
Suns.
down the street from me.
You're going to have to wait.
You're going to have
So,
to
Sarah,
go
what
tell
do
the
we go
bakery
with
about
today?
this.
We went with GPEG84's "Talk to My AI Agents."
I like
Because
it.
that's what we're going to be doing a little bit more of as we move along in this here millennia.
Maybe I'll start pretending I am my own AI agent over email and just like get away with if I say something awkward, be like, "Oh, that was my agent. Sorry."
There
the
was
future.
actually we got a feedback email from somebody that it didn't we didn't use it in the show, but it kind of stuck with me, and they had forwarded along something they had bought something online, and the product seemed off. You know, and so it was sort of like, get a hold of customer service, and got an email back, and it disclosed at the end of the email, like, this is, the AI, her name is Julie, like whatever it was. So it wasn't supposed to be coming across as a human, but they were very put off by this. And it just sort of like, what, like, you're too good to get, like, I'm a customer of yours.
Like I bought something from you. Like, speak to me. Yeah. Interesting.
Right. Instead of, something that feels boilerplate.
Right.
Even though humans do that too. So
Right.
yeah, I think we're kind of navigating this new world.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
and,
Roger?
we'd like to thank everyone who's been supporting us today. I want to give a shout out to Crypto Baron, who gave us a $1.99 super sticker at the top of the show twice. Not just once, but twice. Woo.
Hey.
Dive gave us a raise on Patreon. Patreon supporters, the best, especially when you give us a raise. Thank you, one and all. I just want to give a shout out to everyone on Twitch that's been supporting us. Zoe Brings Bacon, sharing us with bits. Jay Lawler for following us. C-Spawn for cheering us on with 100 bits. Woo. And DJ Bastic for following us yesterday. Thank you, one and all. Again, great support. Makes the show possible. Thank you, one and all.
And folks, if you want to get a recap of the Tech Week's headlines, you're going to get them with a little bit of a different flavor, how things affect and disaffect African Americans specifically. Come check out the Tech John, where myself, Stephanie Humphrey, Terrence Gaines, we host over there. We put out new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us at everything pretty much at the Tech John. That's the Tech JAWN.com.
It's a great show. Definitely get subscribed if you haven't been already. I listen every weekend as I do my walks. But you can watch us live or listen to us later, or watch us later, really, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC. That is when we do our show live. It's live every day. We'd love to have you with us if you can be. You can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live, and you can also join us tomorrow because we're doing it all again. See you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.